Today, we're talking about the Demon Core. It's all about that nuclear science. Spooky, spooky radiation. What do you boys have to say, huh?
Yeah, let's get this.
Get it going.
Get us some Demon Core.
Is anybody else scared of radiation like I am?
I love it. It's my favorite. Good thing you got your Faraday underwear, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I got my Mormon 100% cotton underwear. Anyway,
yeah. So,
what do you
Chris,
guys?
what do we got?
What do you guys know about when I say Demon Core? What do you guys think of? Does anybody know anything about it?
Sounds like a video game.
Sound like science fiction, something or other.
I hear like black metal.
Yeah.
It does sound like a music genre for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's way worse. It's
What
scary.
is it?
So you guys have not watched any videos on this, or do you guys have a cursory knowledge? Or?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Poquito.
So I was thinking, since Oppenheimer comes out today, which I will be going to see, I'll be doing a back-to-back. I'm going to go see Barbie first, and then I'm going to go sneak into Oppenheimer. You know,
Barbenheimer. Or is the other way around?
Barbenheimer.
Radio fast and goes cruising just as fast as she can now.
The world will remember this day.
So anyways, I was thinking, I recently discovered this. I'm still a dummy when it comes to radiation and nuclear physics. All this stuff is crazy complicated, but I know just a smidgen about it. A couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, about this time last week, I found a video on the Demon Core, and I thought, oh wow, that'd be really interesting to react with you guys, especially since Oppenheimer's coming out and everything, and just the honestly the pure terror of radiation and what it can do and how freaking crazy it is.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
that's what I was thinking.
Sounds like some interesting Roughboyz content.
And I've been doing a lot of preparation for this. I've been standing in front of my microwave all week.
Oh, I don't feel good.
You know, just trying to soak in those rays.
Just in your underwear.
You know, yeah.
Standing there.
Yep.
Nice.
A lot of bodily functions have failed. I really didn't anticipate that. I really should have thought that through, but I wanted to be thorough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is no joke. I got a rash. It is, I think I took it a little too far, the preparation for this. But here we are. We're going to do it. If you guys are ready, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's get it on.
Let's do it.
All right.
Right. Dig in.
The Oppenheimer special. The Roughboyz are going to take... Okay, so like I said previously, found this video, found it to be very interesting. I know just a cursory knowledge. This is a very spooky tale, and I thought it'd be a cool video to react to for Oppenheimer this week. So let's get into it, huh?
Let's do it.
Let me adjust the volume. Oh, by the way, this is he'll say his name.
46.
Well, this is a great video. We'll link the description. We'll link the video in the description. Go check out the original video. He does a great job. I forget his name. He'll say it in a second. Kyle something. Anyways, go check out this video. Give it a like. It's awesome. It's really well done.
39 plutonium core scheduled for detonation by nuclear bomb was harmlessly melted down and reintegrated into the United States' nuclear stockpile. That was the end of a 14-pound metallic sphere that had killed 2 scientists not 11 months before. This is the true story of the Demon Core.
Yeah, Kyle Hill. He has a YouTube channel. Go check it out. This is a great video.
The spheres of atomic material that had obliterated the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki would have easily fit in your hand, and they were light enough to carry. Because of the extreme levels of radiation coming from them, the cores were carried around in secure containers, but curious physicists reported that the cores were disturbingly warm to the touch. Both the Little Boy and
That's not
Fat Man
concerning
nuclear
at all.
bombs use subcritical
Nah.
masses of uranium and plutonium respectively, meaning that no self-sustaining nuclear reaction would be possible with the spheres alone, and the nickel plating that covered them.
So I think, as previously stated, that the demon core is not uranium, it's plutonium. It's about a 14-pound ball of plutonium, which plutonium is not a naturally occurring element. It's got to be man-made.
Synthetically, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Them would prevent most of the escaping radiation from harming you. The real harm comes later. The terrible explosions that Little Boy and Fat Man are famous for only happen when a nuclear core goes critical, using directed conventional explosives to artificially induce a critical mass.
So what's cool is those. So what you have on top here. Maybe I'll take the mouse. What you have on top here, if you have the plutonium core, it's encased in beryllium or something like that. But then these weird looking things, you know, that's actually just TNT.
What?
So what happens when the nuclear bomb goes off, at least the one that happened in Nagasaki, is they had to compress the plutonium so that it would have more time to have a chain reaction and therefore be a bigger explosion. So actually what they do is technically
Jeez.
there's a bomb before the bomb. They explode the plutonium. The plutonium compacts, and
Right.
as it's compacted, it has more time for that nuclear reaction to go off, and therefore making a bigger explosion. So that's why Hiroshima was not as big of an explosion as Nagasaki, because it was a different made bomb. It was called like a rifle bomb, and only a tiny percentage of the uranium in the Hiroshima bomb was used effectively. So it could have been much bigger, but what happened is it expanded and exploded before it had enough time to really become deadly. So that's why they have these explosives here that compact the plutonium so it shrinks down and it has more time to become a bigger bomb.
And it explodes in the air versus hitting the ground, so it has more impact.
Yeah, I think it was
the radius more.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, so that's another thing. So it explodes, I think, about 60 meters in the air, I think. So if it were to explode closer to the bottom, it wouldn't be nearly as destructive. Anyways, it's all effing crazy.
This meant literally compressing a plutonium or uranium sphere into a much
so
smaller
they're
volume
compressing it
with
with those
explosions.
with that TNT.
Now, neutrons emitted from natural radioactivity would be much more likely to go on and impact other atoms before.
So there's the chain reaction. So the neutron hits the uranium nucleus, and then it sets a chain reaction. And then so as this chain reaction happens, all that energy is released. So really, when you're looking at a nuclear bomb, you're just looking at energy being released. But in order to give it time, just a millionth of a second, to have that crazy chain reaction, they need to compress it with explosives.
Or escaping, leading to a chain reaction of exponentially more and more atoms releasing tremendous energy. At the heart of an atomic blast is a radioactive core filled with atoms poised like rat traps. All the bomb itself does is force one of those traps to snap. The so-called Demon Core was the third core of fissionable nuclear material made during the World War II era. It was also supposed to be dropped on Japan, but after the Empire's prompt surrender following the obliteration of Nagasaki, the core had no immediate military use.
So I just think that's a crazy part of the story. What we're looking at right now, I don't know if that's the original photo or a recreation of it, but what we're looking at right now, that orb of plutonium, about 14 pounds, was going to be the third bomb dropped on Japan if they had not surrendered.
That would have been huge. A huge like
Wow.
Yeah, it just would have been just terrible, absolutely terrible. But they surrendered before it was assembled, and so now these scientists in Los Alamos, they're left with this 14-pound orb of plutonium, and they can't help themselves but experiment on it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead,
And then if we run it back, he'll explain it later. But so those brick looking things, those are tungsten bricks, and he'll explain that in a second. But tungsten is dense enough to where when the radioactive reaction is happening, it serves as a mirror. He explains it much better than I do.
Doesn't it bounce off of it?
It bounces off of it.
it's not lead, is it? Or
No,
they don't know
no,
to use lead later on.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. But in this picture, it's tungsten. Those bricks are tungsten bricks, and as the reaction is happening, those neutrons can't pass through the tungsten because it's a denser material, and so they bounce back at the orb, and hopefully those neutrons will hit more atoms, splitting them off, causing energy to be released. So that's the whole point.
the core had no immediate military use. Instead, a physicist working at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico after the war decided to use the remaining core to figure out just what it takes to make a core like this go critical. When Otto Robert Frisch first arrived in the United States, he was placed at Los Alamos to study neutron multiplication in uranium and plutonium. These elements naturally radiate neutrons in the process of nuclear decay, and as we said, if there is enough of the radioactive element close enough together, these neutrons can go on to cause the rat trap style reaction as neutrons slam more neutrons free from other atoms. However, there is another way to force criticality other than just having a giant sphere of plutonium, which would be hard to make. It turns out that if you use a very thick material to reflect neutrons coming out of the material back upon itself, like a mirror would, a self-sustaining reaction can occur with substantially less plutonium or uranium. Even though an explosion might not happen after criticality is reached in all cases, a deadly blast of radiation certainly could. And that's exactly what happened. By 1944, Frisch was leading the critical assembly group at Los Alamos and started a dangerous series of near criticality testing. The physicists in the group wanted to use neutron reflective materials around spheres of plutonium and uranium to see just how close they could get to going critical, without explosives and without going over the edge. Commenting on the inherent risk of experiments of this kind, legendary physicist Richard Feynman reportedly said that the experiments were like, quote, tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon, end quote. But even with the very real possibility of being roasted alive by the radioactive fire of a failed criticality test, the tickling the dragon's tail experiments continued. Within 2 years, neutron reflection experiments on the Demon Core would claim the lives of two scientists, Harry K. Daghlian Jr. and Louis Slotin, in almost the exact same way.
Well, ads pay the bills.
On August 21st, 1945, Harry K. Daghlian Jr. was conducting a criticality experiment with the Demon Core. He was placing tungsten carbide bricks around the mass of plutonium to see how many bricks and in what orientation it would take to reflect enough neutrons to cause the core to go critical. That afternoon, using a Geiger counter-like device to measure the radiation coming off of the plutonium, he got close enough to criticality that he decided to end the experiment. Now, this result should have been worth just a few graphite streaks in a notebook and maybe a beer at the local bar with the other physicists, but Daghlian was curious. Later that night, he returned, alone, to his assembly for another test.
Oh, just hanging out alone to do some nuclear tests.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
No big deal.
Yeah.
That's just.
It always ends well.
How does one go about
like
getting
that-
a job like that?
It's like that movie where the
You gotta
kid
be
makes
smart.
a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, what movie is
where
that?
The kid makes a nuclear bomb.
The kid goes to
Jimmy
like
Neutron.
his factory, like where his dad works, and then he gets like the materials needed to make a nuclear bomb. In theory,
Who knows about this?
Just us.
We should do something.
We can get in there. What can they do to us anyway? We're kids. It's a prank, right?
So Zach asked, what do you got to do to get a job like this? And then I said, well, you got to be really smart. But then I don't know what these guys do, especially what the second guy does is supremely stupid. So these guys are very smart, but somehow
does he get naked and like rub against it?
No.
See, here's the thing I get when I watch scientists like this. You know, it's like they even said it's like tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon. So
yeah.
you take that into consideration, right? And then these guys, it's like someone that has a gambling problem in a casino. That's exactly how I look at it. They can't help themselves but to tinker with it just a little bit more.
That's so funny. Dude, like, wait until we get to the second guy. You're so right though. Dude. That's precisely.
So stupid.
All right, let's keep going.
Like the tests before, Doglian created an orientation of bricks that his measuring device told him was nearly critical. As he was placing one last brick, the measuring device indicated that the core would go critical if he continued on the assembly. The dragon would wake up. So cautiously, he began removing the final brick, and then he dropped it. The moment the brick hit the assembly, the demon core instantly went supercritical. And according to Doglian, there was a blast of blue light and a wave of heat. Doglian reacted quickly, though, and used his right hand to knock the dropped brick all the way to the floor. In those fractions of a second, Harry had received a fatal dose of radiation. In fact, he had endured what was likely the highest acute dose of radiation of any human in history. 25 days later, Doglian fell into a coma and died from organ failure owing to severe radiation poisoning. This photo, taken 9 days after the accident by medical staff, is of the hand that Harry had used to stop the demon core. He was 24.
That's not bandaging. Like,
jeez,
that's his skin. Isn't that crazy? Like,
that's insane.
Like your cellular structure is literally falling apart.
Yeah.
The thing that physically makes you, your cells,
your atoms,
everything just begins to deteriorate. That radiation just blows through you like little tiny needles, invisible, and you can't even feel it. That's what's so spooky, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, the fact that it's man-made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's something that humans weren't meant to touch.
Like his body, his hand is literally like betraying itself. It's just falling apart. Who he is falling apart. It's insane.
This reminds me of, I think it was like, what were those girls in like the 20s, Mike? They were making all these products. They worked in a factory for
they licked radium.
Yeah.
Iridium or uranium or something like that. Iridium.
Yeah, and so they had put it in toothpaste and lotion or something, and like watches. And so these girls
dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cups. They're teacups.
In fact, continues that.
And there's a book, and I saw a video about it, and they're just poisoning themselves with radiation, and like slowly over time, but they were like putting it in their bodies, and they were making watches at a factory, so it would glow. Like that was the whole thing. It was like it glows and it looks cool, and it just slowly was just killing them.
Jeez.
And this one guy was taking pills with it, or like medicine or something. And he would take like spoonfuls of medicine every day, and eventually his jaw completely deteriorated and just fell off.
Yeah, where did I hear that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy.
Dude, it happened to a lot of the factory workers too, which were women, that they lick the tip of the paintbrush from painting the watch.
to give it a point.
Right.
And then their jaws were gone.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's messed up.
So there's this one YouTuber, I forget his name, otherwise I would plug him. He makes good content, but Yeah, he'll go into antique stores with a Geiger counter, and he found some plates that were made with these materials and stuff like from the 50s, and just these ceramic plates, but they have traces. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's in them. I don't know if it's uranium or anyways, it's some sort of metallic element. And he'll run the Geiger counter over it, and it'll just go crazy. In fact, he went to where they did the Trinity test, which we'll see in Oppenheimer, where they tested the first bomb. He actually physically went there, and he was running a Geiger counter over the ground there, and it was slightly above normal radiation levels, what they call background radiation levels. It was slightly above it, but it wasn't harmful really at all. It was totally safe to be there, which is crazy after all these years. You can go into the desert in New Mexico where they detonated this sucker, and it's relatively safe. But then he would run his Geiger counter over these old plates that, you were talking about, like that women in the 40s and 50s would have worked in, and these old plates and stuff. The radiation levels is dangerous and so much higher than the radiation levels at the test site of the Trinity test, which is insane.
So wrong.
And he just, and people have these in their antique stores and they don't know, or maybe they do, but it's insane. God, that's me again. I keep messing up. All right, here we go.
Harry wasn't completely alone in experimenting in the lab that night. A security guard, Private Robert J. Hemmerly, was also sitting at his desk next to Doglian reading his newspaper. Hemmerly died 33 years after Doglian Jr. from what is now considered to be radiation-caused leukemia. He was 29 and the father of 2 at the time of exposure. Harry K. Doglian...
Wow, so even if you're standing a few feet away, it's still going to get you. It might take 20 years, but it'll get you. That's crazy.
Jr. was the first official fatality from a criticality accident and the first American casualty of the atomic age. He had arranged to have his body donated to science after his inevitable end so that scientists could study the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. During the 25 days after his fatal mistake, Doglian's colleague Louis Slotin spent many hours at his bedside comforting the 24-year-old as radiation poisoning slowly claimed him. Exactly 7 months later, in the same hospital, Louis Slotin would suffer the exact same fate.
Nuclear cowboy.
By 1946, physicist Louis Slotin had taken over the critical assembly group from Frisch. Though the criticality experiments were moved from the Omega site at Los Alamos to the Palajito laboratory, the dangerous nature of the experiments did not change. In addition to Feynman's continued warnings, physicist Enrico Fermi said that, quote, "Keep doing that experiment that way, and you'll be dead within a year." But Louis Slotin wasn't worried, and the experiments continued. On May 21st, 1946, Slotin was conducting another criticality experiment with the Demon Core. This time, though, instead of using tungsten bricks, Slotin was testing the critical point of the core by placing it inside 2 half spheres made of beryllium and lowering those halves until there was just a sliver of space before the sphere was complete. If the core was completely enclosed, the reflection of neutrons would be total, and the dragon would wake again. The local expert among experts, Slotin was reportedly brash in his experimental protocols. In his signature pair of blue jeans and cowboy boots, Slotin would perform the criticality tests without the fail-safe spacers that would sit on the half spheres and keep it from ever completely closing. Instead, he would put his bare hand on the top half sphere and attempt to lower it using only the blade of a flathead screwdriver. That way he could get...
That's insane, right?
What
Like, we just think, like, they got this high technology and stuff. But back then, like, this dude was just... And they'll show a clip from an old movie with John Cusack. Like, he was just using it, like, twisting a... So if that beryllium sphere totally encases that plutonium, it's going to go supercritical. But so the only thing that's keeping it from doing that is this little tiny screwdriver. It's just like, Good Lord, Mike, what did you say? Like they gotta gamble. Some of these guys in their hubris, they just got a gambling problem.
They gotta tinker with it one more time. They just gotta edge ever closer.
Well, even if it's through that narrow space, it's just all those spare atoms that are flying out there. Wouldn't that be bad in itself too? When it's just kind of more focused.
Well,
yeah, I would think that.
Through that space, enough neutrons are escaping, and it's not causing the chain reaction. But once it closes completely, it becomes that plutonium becomes completely encased in that sphere, and then it goes supercritical, which is the problem. So even if there's just a little tiny sliver, enough neutrons are escaping to where the chain reaction isn't going supercritical. So, but anyways,
get much closer to criticality, and Slotin had successfully completed this experiment dozens of times. The afternoon of the accident, Louis Slotin was conducting the same screwdriver experiment as 7 other colleagues recorded and watched. It was just like the test before, but for whatever reason, this time, the screwdriver slipped. The moment the spheres touched, the demon core went prompt critical. The reflected neutrons coming from the plutonium inside the sphere instantly initiated supercriticality. Like the Doglian accident, there was a flash of blue light and a wave of the dragon's heat before Slotin could flip the top half sphere off of the assembly. Naturally, the 7 other scientists in the room ran out as fast as they could as the accident occurred, but Slotin shouted them all to get back and tossed them a stick of chalk. He told them each to mark down precisely where they were standing. By establishing their positions relative to the demon core, Slotin would be able to calculate just how much radiation each person had just absorbed, and how much their lives had just been shortened.
Wow.
According to physicist
Brilliant. Stupid, but brilliant of him to just be like, get back in, grab some chalk, mark your spaces, and
learn from what you did.
I mean, that was quick thinking, right?
He's like, I've got a death sentence that I just,
yeah, he knows he's
dead. Cashed in,
right?
But I want to still do a scientific, case study right now on everybody else.
On how much.
That's pretty crazy.
I know I'm dead, but you guys might not be. We need to do some math.
As
Mark
much.
Where you are with some chalk. Yeah, you guys aren't
Yeah.
as dead as I am. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Raymer Schreiber, who was present in the room with Slotin that day. Slotin's first words immediately after the incident were, quote, "Well, that does it." Louis Slotin died of severe radiation poisoning 9 days later at the age of 35. He died in the same hospital as Harry Doglian Jr. on another Tuesday the 21st as a result of the same accident with the same hunk of radioactive material. They even were cared for by the same nurse. The demonstration that day was supposed to be the final demonstration with the core before it was used in a test detonation, and it was. In those few moments, Louis Slotin had been exposed to over 1,000 rads of radiation from the neutrons and gamma rays blasting out of the demon core. This is possibly the highest dose of radiation any human has ever taken.
Jeez.
As a comparison, 1,000 meters from ground zero in Hiroshima, the neutron radiation was measured as less than half of what Slotin had absorbed in those fractions of a second. Since 1945, over 60 criticality accidents have been recorded, leading to at least 21 deaths in facilities and labs all around the world. The flash of blue light that so often accompanies these incidents is an indication of the invisible radiation being released. As high-energy particles crash through the air, like these particles exiting a cyclotron.
Like, that's crazy. Usually radiation is invisible, but when this kind of thing happens, it's so intense that it's that eerie blue light.
Turns it
Yeah.
blue.
Whoa.
Yeah, boy.
Whoa,
Nice.
Marsh, nice. production value going up here on Roughboyz for sure.
They excite the air molecules. The only way for these molecules to return to a lower energy state is to release some radiation of their own, photons of light. But while gases can absorb and re-emit the energy imparted to it by nuclear material, human bodies cannot. Instead, particles and gamma rays flying out of the nuclear cores rip electrons from the molecules that make you up and smash your cellular machinery.
Yeah, like that's a picture of what happens to your DNA. It just radiation tears through it like a spear.
Beyond repair. When enough molecular damage is done, radiation sickness can manifest itself as everything from vomiting and diarrhea to blisters, inflammation, impaired cognition, widespread organ failure, confusion, nausea, high fever, dizziness. 5 weeks later, on July 1st, 1946, a different nuclear core was destroyed in a 23-kiloton air-deployed nuclear weapon over Bikini Atoll. It was supposed to be the end of the Demon Core. Instead, the Demon Core was melted down and redistributed throughout the rest of the United States stockpile.
Yeah.
So there's like a theory for the Bikini Atoll.
Ooh, let's hear it.
That's where, well, it's not as serious. It's because that's where SpongeBob lives underneath
Bikini Bottom.
Bikini Bottom.
Oh.
And that's why all the fish are bipedal things that because of all the radiation.
Just get out of here, you stupid, dumb animal!
Dude.
I like to think that's
that one. I would actually believe. I want to believe that one. Whoa.
That's awesome.
Bikini Bottom. Okay.
Effectively getting a brand new half-life. Until next, melted down and redistributed throughout the deployed nuclear weapon over Bikini Atoll. It was supposed to be the end of the Demon Core. Instead, the Demon Core was melted down and redistributed throughout the rest of the United States stockpile, effectively getting a brand new half-life. Until next time.
All right, that's the end of the video.
Jeez.
Great video. Here's the kicker for me. So it's not destroyed. It got melted down, and it's now dispersed. If I'm correct in thinking, it's now dispersed among the rest of our nuclear arsenal. So the Demon Core lives on.
Yeah.
It's just now sitting in other nuclear weapons.
But it's reset too, so it's like it's a brand new plutonium piece.
Yeah.
Brand new beast.
With a new half-life before it becomes inert.
Right, exactly. So that's insane.
Jeez. Speaking of Half-Life, you guys ever play that game?
I never have.
Yeah, that was a good game. I loved Half-Life.
Yeah, can't wait till the third one comes out, right?
Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
It'll be coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Half-Life 3, 2050.
Half-Life 3, August 2019.
What's the half-life of when it was first released?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe that's when it will come out.
Oh, yeah. Let's do the math. Boy. Yeah, that's just crazy to me, man. Dude, 9 days. For that second guy, it took him 9 days to die, and the first guy 25 days. But
man,
that's insane.
It's crazy how once it touches you, that's it. It's instant. Like,
oh yeah,
you've absorbed all that radiation into your body.
You just took a big shotgun blast of atoms.
Man,
I wonder
for science.
What kind of that's for why the science. I wonder what kinds of if any scientific things he discovered or learned before he passed away, or if he was able to do anything, or if he just
I don't know anything about him. I'm sure he's a brilliant dude. I mean,
yeah,
you would have
or
to be
the guy before him.
Yeah, I mean, you would to be a part of Los Alamos. You would have to be just incredibly smart and talented and brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But also have the hubris to use screwdrivers in that kind of experiment.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's take away the space. I don't need space.
Yeah, I don't need space. Get those out of here. I got this with my screwdriver.
Screwdrivers. Holding it with his hand, it said. Like he would hold it with his hand.
Yeah, he would hold the top of the sphere with his hand and tweak. Yeah.
What an idiot. You gotta be. Yeah. You gotta think of yourself as something very, very
Think about
high.
something we're doing now that we don't have no idea.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that. Yeah, what are these same guys doing now? Right?
Scary stuff, man.
Oh,
Scary
dude,
stuff.
It's terrifying. Radiation is knucking futz for sure.